What up, folks? It's your man, G, hitting you with a brand spanking new album review. That's right. And this time we're jumping right into this brand new album from The Weeknd. It's called Dawn FM. Man, this one's something spectacular. We're gonna get right into it with the title track, the intro, Dawn FM. It starts off and sticks true to the style of an intro, pretty much welcoming you in with this warm vocal delivery from The Weeknd, and it has these analog effects on it, and it has these running keys and futuristic sounds in there, and the progressions, they really let you know that you're about to take this ride into this. It's an amazing trip. I'm gonna let you get into it with me as we go ahead and dive deeper into what this album is actually. Jim Carrey is at the end of this intro track with this interlude, and he's pretty much giving you this warm welcome to this existence that seems like maybe it's the afterlife or something, and he's letting you know that you're about to take this trip to what's going to be heaven maybe. And it becomes this overall theme for the album. He'll be interjecting in and out at the end of the tracks, giving us these radio-like presentations where he comes in and it sounds like kind of like an advertisement. It sounds like he's on the radio. It's kind of like, what am I hearing right now? But it's really creepy and spooky, but it's still intriguing and captivating at the same time. So after that first intro track, we're gonna jump right into this and get heavy into the music. This album's pretty deep with the lyricism, and the music is very beautiful. It has a bunch of ups and downs. It has this overall radio concept feel to it. And I don't know if Jim Carrey is supposed to be like God or something. He's representing death. There's a couple features on the album that are very complimentary to the overall feel and enjoyment of the album. It's pretty upbeat, and then it goes mellow, and then it goes upbeat again. And I don't know, it's like a roller coaster of emotions if you actually get into it. It has this 80s funk, this 90s R&B and soul influence, and it also has like this synth pop influence that we've been hearing from him over the last few years, where he's built this character that we've been seeing of him. You know, the one that's been at the Super Bowl. You see it in the memes all the time. He has the red blazer jacket on and the all black on. That character that he's been over these last few albums. I'll say I wasn't feeling the last few albums as much as I'm feeling. Y'all heard that up. I wasn't feeling last few albums as much as I was feeling this one. It was immediately, I jumped right into it and I was like, whoa, I'm really digging this one way more than the other ones. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna jump right into this and get on to the next track. Moving right along to track number 2. Wow, this one's called Gasoline. Man, this one leads right in with these synth keys. It's got these running and panning effects on it from left to right. It's bouncy bass plucks in there. It's got some electric chord progressions, and it's up-tempo with the beat. And the first half of the song delivers some fun and new vocal inflections from Abel. There's some voices that I've never heard him do. He may have done the last few albums or some last few records, but I probably didn't really catch it because I wasn't digging them as much. But man, he's flexing on his low range singing, and it really has this indie rock vibe. It sounds like something from the mid 2000s. You might have heard from like the Shins or something. It's really cool the way he sounds, and I was pretty impressed. It mixes then between his normal vocal and singing that we're used to, and man, it's mixed so good together. It sounds like it's something from the 80s and the 2020s, and they're meeting each other. It's like this futuristic feeling. It feels like you're in a subway in a foreign country or something. Like, woo! I know, I really like this track. It's really poppy and upbeat, and you can really feel it. The verses seem to be about falling and the death of a character that he's been portraying. It's kind of like what I got from the intro. And I love the line where he says it's 5 a.m. He's a nihilist and he knows there's nothing after this. I thought that was pretty intense, and I wasn't expecting him to say something like that leading up to that from what the track has started as. Overall, this song is so fucking dope to me. I'm just gonna tell you to go listen to it. After that, we hop into the next track, which is number 3. That one's called How Do I Make You Love Me? And oh my goodness, this one follows the same tempo. It's like it transitions from that track into this track, and it leads in with these upscale chords. It's got some wild running keys and some warm chords and punchy drums that really progress after the chorus. And pretty much 3/4 into the song, beat goes into this ultra groovy break, and it has like this feeling to it. It makes you feel like you're lost in the music, and it then transitions into the next track. But before we get there, I'll talk about how he delivers these smooth vocals. It's so laid back, and it builds up to this more passionate delivery. And he then delivers these poetic lyrics where he's talking about a dead flame and making someone want him, and the desire to spark that flame again. My favorite line in there is when he said, "I'll fix you mushroom tea and cross the restless sea." It sounds like some Quincy Jones type 80s stuff, and overall I think he did an excellent job on it, and this one was automatically one of my favorites as soon as it started. We then get into number 4, which is the next track, the one that we're all familiar with, which is the lead single, Take My Breath. This one starts off with some funky riffs, and the bass leads the song. It has this amazing break in the middle, and it starts off with this long intro that builds up a similar sound to Thriller, and it has this bouncy up-tempo beat and dark cinematic feeling to it. The instrumentation has this around the head effect to it, and it has these guitars that build up and drop right before the Weeknd comes in with this clean coordination on his high note singing. He's talking about being on the edge, his lover sacrificing herself for him, and wanting to be saved from the darkness that's within. My favorite line in there is when he says, "Nobody does it better, babe. Bring me closer to heaven, babe." Overall, I wasn't feeling this track initially, but combined with the other sounds and the other tracks and put in the sequencing of this album, it just fits perfectly, and it makes you like the song that much more. It enhances the feeling in the album experience, I would say. After that, we'll get into number 5. This one might be my favorite one, because this one's called Sacrifice. It's got these electric guitars in there, and these punchy snares and kicks. They progress into this piano and guitar hybrid. It's over these deep bass chords, and it builds into this Thriller type instrumentation. Another one, it has upbeat and highly danceable, well structured lyricism. Weeknd goes into it with these lyrics about being born into this coldness, and also finding within himself that he's not able to be tied down and not wanting to sacrifice. It also sounds like he could be talking about himself or his lover at certain moments in the lyrics. It reminds me of some Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson vibes. It has this early 1980s pop R&B feel to it. My favorite line in there is when he said, "When you cry and say you miss me, I lie and tell you I'll never leave." It has a dope refrain in there. I really enjoy it when he hits the my ooh. But overall, this song gives me goosebumps, and it makes me feel like I want to dance, and it really levels me out. I feel like it's just a great track. It sounds like something you're gonna probably hear in a movie in the future sometime coming up, or you're probably gonna hear it in the club next weekend. That track then leads into this interlude by none other than himself, Mr. Quincy Jones. It's called A Tale by Quincy, and it starts off with this 70s R&B style bass, and the grooves are like really cool. It has some electric guitars in there with some plucks, and it also progresses into this perfect sound bed for narration, I would say. Quincy delivers this tale and this personal story about his upbringing and how it shaped his outlook on his life and into adulthood, and it's a tale of his troubled youth, and it talks about his mother and her mental illness. He says something about her being in a straitjacket and how he witnessed that when he was 7 years old. He also talks about how he had an evil stepmom who shaped how he approached and dealt with relationships and past loved ones when it comes to family and romance. Overall, it was a heartfelt message about reflection and recollection, and definitely fits the album's theme of the depth, the remembering, and how I said it felt like it had this part where you're recalling things. It feels like it's a first half of the tracks are meant to feel like a blissful death or something, and we approach this middle part, it feels like it's some type of purgatory. After that, we get into track number 7. This one's called Out of Time. It's led in by this interlude by Quincy Jones. Like I said before, it follows that same 70s style instrumentation. It has some lo-fi drums in there and some really funky bass lines. It has some really cool A-pad chords in there and maybe some harps in there. I'm not really sure, but it has these really cool strings and stuff in the back with some flutes and things. It really creates this beautiful bed for The Weeknd to lay down these pristine vocals, I would say. He's talking about reflecting and touching on pretty much the same things from the interlude that Quincy Jones gave. He speaks on his recent behavior and being able to not fix his errors and asking for another chance, but it being too late. It sounds like it's the Whispers meets Daft Punk, and it's perfect for a slow dance, I would say. The song wraps up also with more of those Jim Carrey radio-esque interlude vibes where he's metaphorically speaking about telling you this story and telling you to stay tuned and looking at that light in the tunnel in the end, and we're almost there. It feels like it's a death and you're going through that transition. It's kind of like when you see it in the movies when they die and they float, and right before they get to the heaven you see the light and then you see the darkness that they're also engulfed in. You've seen it in the movies before. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen it in things before. But this one also just like it's just an introduction to the next half and the next journey of the album. It feels like you're on the way to forever. He talks about being cold to the ones who love him the most. We then jump into the next track, which is called Here We Go Again. This one's featuring Tyler, the Creator. We're now at the middle of the album, and Jim Carrey affirmed in the interlude at the end of the last track that the songs were going to start going slower the next 30 minutes, he said. This track is following the melodic chord set by the previous track, and we get into the first official feature of the album where Tyler, the Creator, is picking up after Abel does his thing. This one has some minimal percussion. It's bass guitar heavy with these beautiful pad harmonies, and it has progressions on what sounds like some Rhodes, it's some type of keys. It's allowing the duo to inject some really cautionary lyrics about romance. There's also some humble bragging in there from The Weeknd, and Tyler's talking about accomplishments and materialistic people, and Weeknd also touches on meaningless sex and falling into the same loop of relationships and love not being what it seems to be. They also both touch on relying on their artistry as a replacement for their love life, but it never works out. Tyler drops some deep lines in there where he says, "Forever is too long to me." It seems pretty simple, but when you really think about it, it may branch you off to a bunch of other thoughts. Abel slides in there with some classic Weeknd type lyrics where he says, "You wanted your boyfriend jealous with a couple of pics, but you didn't expect to fall for me once you got this." Yeah, overall, I wasn't feeling the music on this one really, but the lyricism was pretty dope. We then jump into number 9. This is the next track where we're starting to go into another field. This one's called Best Friends. And when we jump into this one, it starts with the slow tempo strings. It also has some funky bass stabs in there. It feels like it's some 1980s R&B. It's really danceable with the grooves, and it has some crispy snares and hand claps in there. And the progressions of the vocals align with the melodies and they intensify. Weeknd delivers some bouncy singing with some vocal effects that sound kind of breathy, and he's deepening the feel of the audio. It feels like you're almost submerged in the lyrics. He's speaking on not wanting to be responsible for the failed love and relationship, and relationship turning into the best friends trope because they can't manage the romance and it's too troubling. He's warning his lover about not falling in love with him because it could be damaging. It sounds like a sad song, but it's flow. He has this flow and delivery that just makes it fun. He's singing along, and it even makes you want to dance and has this second nature feeling to it where you're gonna want to feel like you're repeating it and moving along to it. My favorite part of there is when he says, "I can never hurt you," and it sets up for the next few bars that follow the same pattern, and it feels like some Michael Jackson type stuff again. Overall, it gets better with each listen, and it has some really good head nod vibes to it, and I definitely can see some choreography going down to this one. It got that bound to the next track. This one's called "Is There Someone Else?" It takes this other tone where it feels sort of apologetic. It has these punchy kicks, and it's resonating across with these soft snare hits, and then you have these running keys in the background with some bouncy bass synthesizers panning across the earphones. It has some plucking sounds in there with some chords that allow Abel to deliver these soft vocals after the sample in the intro. He's talking about not deserving the loyalty and not wanting to lose his spot that he has in your heart, knowing that his lover may and possibly has someone else being hurt by what they're doing right now. Sounds like a mid-tempo driving song. It has these lovely pad chords in the background, and it feels like it's emotionally driven. It has this feeling of departure to it. And my favorite line is in the chorus where it says, "If you're hurting him, you're hurting me. And if I ain't with you, I don't want to be." Overall, it has this cool bop to it, but it may be too emotional for me to just jump into it and listen to it on the whim. We then get into track 11. We're approaching the last lap of this album. This one's called Starry Eyes, and it's transitioned from the last track. It starts with these running synth keys, and it has this bed of ethereal chords. They progress into this cinematic and dramatic instrumentation, and it has little to no prominent percussion in there. There's almost no drums that you're hearing in this joint. Abel goes into the lyrics. He's talking about meeting and being with his dream girl and realizing that she's broken from her past love and wanting to fix those shattered ends, and how she's like the angel from the stars. It sounds like that dark classic Weeknd, but somehow set in the theme and the tone of this album. It carries on the feel of caution and death and rebirth, and it really gives you that continued feeling of the album of being inside this universe of Dawn FM, the experience itself. We then hit track number 12, which is called "Every Angel is Terrifying." And this track is such an experience. It's meshed with the ending of the last song, which makes the whole thing cohesive itself. This track is an experience itself, like I said, providing another layer to the album's artistic genius. It's like, is this an interlude? Is this a song? Is this a commercial? Is this a dream? Is this death? The Weeknd comes in the first part, the first quarter of the song, I would say, with these harmonious vocals, which also goes into this heavily sounding spoken word with this choir-like background vocals, and it then transitions into this infomercial style type of vocals, and it's like an advertisement for the afterlife. It serves as an introduction for the next act of the album, bringing you into this brightness, feeling like that theme I told you it has from the beginning. Is this the beginning, a blissful death? Is this the middle, a purgatory where you're confused and reflecting on who you are? And then are we getting to the ending where it's a state of euphoria in this utopia? That's what it feels like. Are we approaching that light at the end? Are we getting closer? Wrapping up track 12, we slide into track number 13, which is called "Don't Break My Heart." This one has some late 80s, early 90s style R&B chords combined with some new age EDM type drums and percussions in there. The bass is pulsating with this pitch bending, and it has melodies that feel like you're driving through a tunnel on a rainy afternoon. This one also has some vulnerable sounding lyrics. He's talking about not being able to handle any more heartbreak. You have the delivery in there that intensifies and comes back down, and it comes back up and it comes back down, and it has this soft-spoken instance where Abel sounds like a different person. It makes me recall an earlier part and section in the album, hearing that part where he had a new voice and it sounded deeper and like it had some type of effect on it. My favorite line in there is in the pre-chorus where he says, "I know you're right for me ecstasy. And then he goes into this pattern after that. That sounds pretty cool. Overall, this one sounds like a fun song, and you'd hear it at a bowling alley maybe. It has these lyrics and feel that you could relate to. Once we're done with that track, we'll get into number 14. This one's called I Know You're Married, and it's featuring Lil Wayne. This is the second feature on the album, and I think it may be produced by Calvin Harris. Jumping right into it, this one's another 80s R&B style track. It's got this upbeat guitar plucking. It has some melodies and some groovy bass lines in there with some ethereal pad chords and some emotional progressions with some clean drums and percussions that also surprise you in there. The bridges are pretty clean and it leads up everything very well, stitching all the vocals and drumming and everything, the instrumentation together. The Weeknd leads in first with 2 verses. He's recalling a new romance, and one that's tainted because it's someone else's wife, and how it's killing him that he's having to share her. He's falling for her. And Lil Wayne follows up with this 3rd verse. He has some auto-tune effects on his vocals. He's rap crooning about the same topic. He drops a funny line in there, Lil Wayne, where he says, "Tell your hubby I'll kill him, no hubcap." That's at the end of his verse. Abel also sounds really great on the bridge where he says, "I can't be with you, you're too deceiving." And then he goes into some more lyrics that sound pretty heart-staking. Both artists offer you these blended vocals at the end of the song where they're making it very satisfying to hear the performance together. It's unlike most of the album. This track, it ends and it fades out into this darkness without anything leading up after it. This is the only track that I noticed that ends like that, where it's sudden before it goes into the next track. Number 15 is called Less Than Zero. This one comes off with some more dance pop 80s vibe. It has this feel to it that makes you want to snap your fingers and dance around, just as if you were in a synthwave dance club. It starts off with these upscale chords, some bass guitars are in there with electric guitars, and it has these analog effects and these running keys that have these punchy drums behind them and some dance chords that make you want to move. Like I said, Abel comes in with these easygoing vocals about not being able to shake the feelings that haunt him inside and not facing his dark truths. He's also talking about dying alone and how he doesn't want to be the burden on someone and being less than zero and not wanting to drag that person into that type of relationship and bring them onto the same grounds, and also mutually letting go. It sounds like an 80s movie in there in the club scene. It has these fun vibes with these sad lyrics. My favorite line in there is when he says, "Now you'd rather leave me than watch me die in your arms." Overall, it sounds like fun, but it has a deeper effect when you really relate. And overall, it sounds fun, but it has a deeper effect when you really relate to the lyrics. It may not be my favorite on the album, but I do think it is highly enjoyable. As we get into the closing track, which is number 16, I don't know if The Weeknd is actually on this one. This is another one of those interludes by Jim Carrey. He's doing this outro for the album. It's following the same theme of the Dawn FM. It sounds like he's on the radio, and Jim starts to conclude the album. He's reintroducing that theme. Musically and tonally, it sounds as if this destination has finally been reached. He recollects on what's happened before and what we have seen thus far and what is to come. It appears as if the ride to heaven has arrived at its destination, and the destination was right there inside of us the whole time. The music progresses and it adds some more instrumentation to the previous and prevalent theme that we heard whenever Jim came into the records, and it feels like we finally reached that climax. Overall, in my opinion, this album is stunning and compelling, and I think it's a great work of artistry. I feel like it's detailed and it has this instrumentation and these brand new vocal inflections that are fun and exciting to hear from The Weeknd. It also provides this experience, makes it feel like it's unpredictable, and it has these ups and downs like a roller coaster, like emotions. It makes you feel something. The transitions of each track and the theme and the sequencing plays an integral part into making the album fundamentally aligned while allowing each act of the album to serve its purpose sonically and individually. It's very well meshed together. The listening and the piecing of the album, the message, I questioned the album's overall theme and direction due to everything that was going on. Notably, I felt like the interludes gave the backstory to the theme of death and the journey of where you're going in this afterlife and heaven itself. At the first half of the album, I felt like there was this blissful excitement leading up to this reflective and confusing somewhat of a purgatory that we were stuck in, and it felt as if The Weeknd had built and created this character over the last few albums, and he was finally putting that stake in there, and this was the celebratory death of that character and a chapter of seeing that character ascend to whatever they're going to become next. But we still have this unknown and mystery because we don't know what we're going to get next after this. I appreciate his artistry and how it's well crafted. I also enjoyed it more than the last 3 albums, I'll say, and I'll definitely be playing this one in these songs until I get sick of them. I think he did an excellent job. I think the theme was well put together, and the features served their purpose and meshed so well with the album. Overall, my favorite tracks were Gasoline, How Do I Make You, I Heard You're Married, Sacrifice, Take My Breath, Don't Break My Heart, Out of Time, Best Friends, Kind of. But let me know what you think. This is The Weeknd's brand new album, Dawn FM. Like, comment, and share. It's your man, Untitled Chapter. That's the folks.